Welcome, everyone. This is our second credentialing conversation session. My name is Sungjoo Park. I'm a senior program officer with the ICUDDR Center for Credentialing and Accreditation, and I'm joined by our director, Dr. Carmel Clancy, and I'll give her an
Hi,
opportunity
everyone.
to,
Yeah, just say
introduce
hi as
herself.
well. Good to see you join us, and you're very, very welcome. We hope we can address all of your questions today. But Sunju's going to get us started, and then we're going to share the presentation. So, welcome.
Yep. Let's see. Is everyone able to see my screen? Screen is
It's
sharing.
coming up
Okay,
okay on
great.
my side, certainly. Yeah, it's good.
All right. So this is our second session, as I mentioned before, for the credentialing conversations. This one is specifically catered to preparation for the Uganda exam, which will be held on the 15th of April of this year. And the first session was basically overviewing the same thing as today. So if you missed that, welcome to this one, and we'll be recording this session as well. We'll go through some exam administration and why credentialing is important, things like that, and we'll have time for questions at the end. But if a question occurs or a thought occurs, please feel free to type it in the chat and we'll try to address it at the very end. So a little bit of rules of engagement. We You can actively participate by speaking up or sharing in the Zoom meeting chat, as I just mentioned. Turn on your camera if possible, but I understand that sometimes there may be connectivity issues, so if not, that's okay. Leave your microphone on mute if you're not speaking, and have fun. So I'll quickly go over the agenda and the objectives. So the first thing we'll touch upon is the relevance of credentialing in the SUD sector, and then the steps and procedures of the application process, the eligibility process, building a strong application, and then how to prepare for the exam. And then we'll quickly go over we'll go inside the exam. So we'll go over some sample questions, the format, the domains that each of the exams cover, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. And then the objectives of this whole webinar is to understand the CCA application process and the eligibility criteria, to learn how to build and prepare for a strong application, to gain insight into the purpose and the rationale of why the process it is what it is, and to gain practical tips. And so now I'll turn it over to Dr. Clancy to go over the relevance of credentialing in the SUD sector.
Lovely. Thank you, Sunju, and you're very, very welcome. Good to see. I know some of the names of people in the room, so welcome to you that know me. If you don't, as Sunju has already introduced, I'm the director for the Center for Credentialing and Accreditation within the overall organization, which is known as ICUDDR. We took over the credentialing aspects or objectives for the ICAP, which is the International Certification for Addiction Professionals, almost now nearly 2 years, just under 2 years really, and we took it over from the Colombo Plan. So if you're familiar with the Colombo Plan, you might think, oh, is this the Colombo Plan? We are obviously friends with Colombo Plan. We're part of the same sort of circle of partners, but we are not the Colombo Plan. So the credentialing, which was very, very ably started and sort of driven initially by our colleagues from the Colombo Plan, formally passed over to what we call ICUDDR, which is the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Demand Reduction. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it means what it says on the tin. And it was transferred over as a contract originally by the INL, State Department in the US, which has largely been a sort of sponsor funder of the ICAP through the Columbia Plan originally. So they transferred over the contract actually to ICUDDR primarily because they felt that it might be a better fit going forward from a sustainability point of view, because universities or institutes of higher education, which really is the network that is supported through the ICUDDR sort of facilitation, could offer and leverage the university network or higher education system to really try and embed this credential globally in a much broader way. So if you're wondering why perhaps the credentialing came over in the first instance or away from Columbia Plan, that's really a very short, quick answer. There was a lot more detail, as I'm sure you can imagine, but that's really broadly the sort of the rationale as to why it moved over. Since it's moved over to us, we've done a number of things that you may now see on the website, but also become more familiar with. But one of the things that we really are trying to move forward is the sort of the brand of the ICAP and of course the reciprocity globally, so that not only do you take it in your own country and it's recognized by your country or your government or your professional associations, which we are really advocating for, but we're also looking to see about cross fertilization in terms of that once you take this ICAP, it would be recognized or at least acknowledged in other countries as a standard that is obviously internationally recognized. And we are pursuing at this moment with our commission a piece of work to actually secure an ISO, an international standard for being the credentialing authority. So more about that, just if you're interested, do keep in touch with us generally via our website, but also if you are not signed up to our newsletter, at the end of this presentation, there are QR codes which would take you to our website, and you're very, very welcome to register both as an individual member with ICUDDR or as an institution, particularly if you are working within the higher education sector. And then you're very welcome in either way to register for the newsletter, which kind of keeps you appraised of the work that we're doing, both as a credentialing centre, but also the wider community of ICUDDR. So really just and really this is just a whistle stop tour to set the scene or the context as to why does the ICAP exist, why is credentialing important, and why this matters really in our sector. So if we move to the first, if that's okay, first slide for me. So what is credentialing? It's an interesting definition because it can mean many different things in different countries, and that's one of our challenges, in actual fact, around reciprocity, about the acknowledgement of credentialing in general. Credentialing is relatively a new sort of concept, certainly post qualifying in your discipline. So when I talk about credentialing in terms of continuing professional development, you might hear about credentialing or micro credentialing. And so that's quite relatively new. The US is very much ahead of most people, followed by places like Australia, parts of Europe, but it's less obvious in some other countries. So this may not be completely relevant or sort of widely understood from your perspective or your lens, depending on which country you're working in. But ideally, what we're trying to move towards, as you can see from the definition here, is a formal process of verifying health practitioners' qualification, experience, and professional standing to assist their competence and suitability to provide safe, high quality addiction care across settings. Now, many of you may say, well, I'm a qualified nurse, or I'm a qualified psychologist, or I'm a qualified doctor. And so already you have achieved a very high status in your country with your qualifications, either from an undergraduate degree or a master's or indeed a PhD. However, we're really, really mindful that whilst you may be very competent in your specific discipline and field, one of the things we really are super aware is there is very limited training and education, especially formally, in the area of addictions or substance use. And so there aren't as many programs of study right across globally. So, whilst you may be a wonderful, excellent practitioner in psychology or medicine or nursing, you may not have had the exposure to formal education in addiction. And whilst there is a lot of transfer of knowledge and skill, there is still a subset of knowledge, as I'm sure all of you will appreciate working in the field, that really you do need to be exposed to, particularly around evidence-based practice and emerging evidence-based practice. So really what we're trying to do is, in effect, offer on top of perhaps a formal education that you've already had in your discipline, a qualification that is recognized internationally and globally, which really demonstrates to, on behalf of the beholder, to a future employer or indeed a provider of services, that you come not only with perhaps your other educational background, but you actually come with this extra qualification, which specifically demonstrates and reflects that you have met a international standard around competence in the substance use sector, be that through from prevention to treatment to recovery. And we'll come to that because we offer very, very specific skill sets or competence levels in those three domains specifically, and an emerging domain for those, because I know we have some nurses on the call who are interested in the new credential that we have developed called the ICAP RN or ICAP registered nurse. So similarly, this brand new credential, which we will be testing for the first time in April, will be able to demonstrate that in addition to your nursing generic knowledge that you bring to the field, you now have some additional competence and knowledge that you can demonstrate should you achieve the ICAP RN. So in terms of the cycle that you can see here or the graphic, really this is, and it may be familiar to many of you, but these are really why does credentialing matter? And I hope that is intuitive, but it's worth repeating. So it ensures at the very top of this graph, you can see it ensures immediately competency and professional standards for all of the reasons that I've just mentioned. So not just within your own sphere of practice or indeed your own geographic location, but this particular credential is been standardized against international standards. So you can say with confidence that actually if you've achieved this ICAP, whatever the level is or the specific area, that this has been recognized or this has been mapped to international standards. It enhances, and as a result, if you have achieved this particular credential, it by de facto should enhance clients' trust and safety. We have generally, a challenge where we have in this field, particularly and for very good reason, many people who come through from lived experience. And that's wonderful and really important to the field to have people who have either experienced substance use disorder or their community has or family has. But at the same time, whilst that is relevant and really enriches our workforce, we do need to ensure that people who are working within this field do meet a certain standard and that standard is evidence-based. So it's also reassuring a client or indeed a provider of services that they have staff or the individual that is looking after the client has reached a particular standard, and it should then in effect reflect the trust and safety that that client can give to us. It also facilitates interdisciplinary collaboration because many of the trainings that we do are very much about interdisciplinary care. None of us really on our own can, either as an individual or as a service provider, do everything for our clients. It is a community of practice. And by having in effect a menu and options of different credentials that the community can share, it facilitates that interdisciplinary value and the importance of collaboration. It, of course, supports ethical practice because if you achieve one of these credentials, you are actually practicing and reflecting that you're practicing at, and in reflecting all ethical values that you would anticipate and expect. And then, of course, coupled with that, it promotes accountability and ultimately allows for professional growth above and beyond any other kind of qualification that you may have achieved within your own discipline. The other area, which maybe is less obvious, is that by having a credential or having employees who have this credential as a service, you may actually leverage your position to gain funding, either from a government or, sort of, or a philanthropist, by demonstrating that you hold your staff and your service up to a higher standard by having individuals credentialed that often may leverage you if you were seeking funding to say, well, this sets us apart from perhaps institutions or indeed services that do not actually have that or do not seek to have that. So again, may give you an opportunity, or as I say, a leverage point to get or seek further funding and resources. And ultimately, we would argue that by having a workforce that meets a international standard that shows and demonstrates evidence-based practice, you will be again, implicitly contributing to public health outcomes by improving the overall competence and ability of a workforce, that it automatically will have a dotted line or an implication to the care that is going to be provided, and ultimately to the impact and the hopefully preferred outcomes that we would be seeking for the patients and the clients that we serve and the communities that we care for. So that's sort of a, as I say, a whistle stop tour, hopefully to set the context as to why credentialing we believe is super important, why it has value, and why we should be seeking to not only achieve it at an individual level, but seek to ensure that employers are set up to employ people with this credential. And ultimately, what we hope to see is that governments recognize this importance alongside professional associations who would support the mechanisms in terms of this type of micro credentialing or credentialing on top of any other qualifications that people bring to the field. Thank you. So if we move forward, Sunju. So this is steps and procedures. So what we offer, I think, am I going to cover that? And is that for me still, Sunju? I think it
Yes.
is a little bit. Yeah. So
Yep.
here you can see down on the left-hand side, on the graph on the right-hand side, you can see a table. It really kind of shows you all of the different credentials that we're currently offering. You can see that at the top and tail of that, from prevention to recovery, there is just the one level. But in the middle part, or the arc of from prevention through to support, you can see that there are four treatment credentials. And really, they are representative of the fact that many people who might be entry level candidates who have just started in the field and do not yet have the full experience. As you can see, supervised work experience, you really only need to be 12 months working in the field. Uh, at the same time wanting to demonstrate that you have the competence and credential, you could come in at level one of treatment. But of course, if you've been working for many, many, many years, you could decide, well, in actual fact, I've been 5 years plus working in the SUD sector. I have over 500 hours of training that I can evidence and demonstrate, and I have already achieved a master's degree or equivalent. Then we would be directing and guiding you to consider taking the ICAP treatment at level 4. So you don't necessarily have to start at 1 and then work your way through in a linear fashion from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, although some people do, and then that's more than appropriate. But if you were already advanced practitioner, you're an advanced practitioner working for many years in the field and feel that you have already achieved the treatment level 4 criteria, then you can apply directly for that. And we're very happy to talk that through with you as you put your applications in to make sure that you get the best possible fit. If, and you can see in red here, you're a nurse, and this is what's new, and we're moving towards this quite slowly because, we need to make sure we get this right. But we're really very keen also to start introducing a credential in the ICAP suite that reflects a discipline. Many people who come into this field come in, as I say, as already qualified practitioners from a nursing background or a medical background or a psychology background, social work background. These are very obvious, as you can imagine, indeed, counseling, generic counseling background. And so we really want to start to reflect that you already come with a sort of a competence level that doesn't need to be tested, but that actually can be evidenced by the qualification that you already have achieved through whichever institution. And what we're really seeking to then do is zero in or focus in on the addiction aspect, and for you to be able to demonstrate that. So, really, in some respects, we're hoping to sort of short circuit you or fast track you towards the credential that otherwise you might be able to achieve. So 500 hours is quite a lot of training. So we're sort of saying, well, you may already be well able to demonstrate all of that through your previous sort of degrees or other education type. So really, we can actually work with you then to fast track to getting to a credential that is specific to your discipline. So you can see here we have just introduced the ICAP-RN. So that is the International Certification of Addiction Professional Registered Nurse. And this is our first opening gambit in this area for the discipline-specific credential. And we are going to be launching that at Uganda. So we're very excited. It'll be the first time to run this test for those who are eligible. So if you are a nurse listening to this, and I know there are a few on this webinar, we don't, usually you apply through our portal for all of the other credentialing, and Sungjoo will be talking to you about that specifically. But for if you are interested in the nursing credential, what we'd ask you to do is to actually do a direct application to us so that we can talk you through that, because we're sort of building as we deliver, so to speak. And so we're learning with the community of nurses who will be eligible to take this. We're actually working with you on that eligibility, plus obviously preparing people for that exam which has been developed. So we'll come to that probably in the questions and answers, but very happy to take specifics on that. The other aspect, which is really quite exciting, since we took over the credentialing side from the Columba plan prior to this, and because primarily, to be quite frank, we had grants from the State Department and the support of INL. This was before the new administration changed or changed the parameters of support and guidance. We would send our proctors to a specific country to run the exam. We have now devised a new model which is really looking to seek to work with in partnership with our many of them through the universities, of course, because we can leverage in-country examination centres. So what that means is that we are now partnering with specific countries through already well-established institutions, universities largely, or higher education training, recognised training, government usually recognised training institutions who want to partner with ICUDDR and the Credentialing Centre to set up an in-country examination recognised ICAP centre. So we have 5 already. You can see here in the green. So we have in Côte d'Ivoire, we have Kenya, we have Libya, Nigeria, and Qatar. And although Uganda, as you can see, is red, not yet identified, we will, because there is a conference running there, that is how we're able to run the next exam in Uganda with the conveners of that conference in Uganda in April. But we are seeking, and as you can see, there is a red, amber, green. These are some countries who've already approached us, and we're just in the process of putting them through the application process, which is very rigorous because, as you can imagine, exam security is paramount. And we're really very, very clear as to who meets the criteria to be an in-country exam centre. So the bar is very, very high. But we're delighted that we have our first 5 on board, and we will be rolling that out right across all the regions. So if you are currently an institution that you think might be able to fulfill the criteria, do also talk to us, and we'd be very happy to reach out and have a specific conversation with you and your colleagues to take that forward. But for the moment, we have 5, and we will then hopefully start scheduling exams over the coming year in those countries. So all of the ICAPs that are currently available will be offered in those in-country examination centres. Thank you, Sunju. So I think I've kind of said that. I won't bore everybody. That's really the rationale as to why we moved to an in-country examination. And you can see it's all about financial sustainability and access and equity, local ownership, and of course brand embedding and institutional leverage. So really, as you can see, our strategic sort of imperative is a decentralized, sustainable, and globally governed credentialing system with strong national ownership and impact. So we're really moving in that direction. And our commission, which is made up of global leaders in the SUD field across all our regions, are really working with the centre in achieving that objective. Thank you, Sanjay. So I think if I hand over to you now for the application and
Yes.
eligibility process, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Clancy. So I'll be quickly going over the application and eligibility process and the rationale behind why it's so rigorous and why it's built the way that it's built. And we've kind of been hinting at it in the first half of this webinar, but we'll go over the rationale and then we'll go over what the application process is and what the eligibility process is. So why have we set it up the way it's set up and why is it so rigorous? Um, and this kind of goes back to the circle that Dr. Clancy was um, presenting earlier. But the first and foremost is we want to protect vulnerable populations. And so a lot of these addiction professionals work with individuals in kind of a sensitive stage in their life or sensitive situations. So the process of the credentialing ensures that only eligible individuals are entrusted um, to help treat them or to counsel them. Defining a standard of excellence. So the process is designed to distinguish those who meet the educational preparation, experience, and ethics in the field. And then validating professional competence. And this kind of builds upon the first 2 points. A thorough process confirms that the applicants possess the required knowledge, skills, and attitudes for the practice. It also ensures public assurance. So these families and the clients and the employers need confidence that the professional is credentialed and competent and trustworthy. And then the reputation of the profession as a whole. So the SUD workforce in the field enhances the credibility of addiction counseling as a professional discipline and employer confidence. So organizations that hire CCA certified ICAP professionals know that they're investing in staff who meet the internationally recognized benchmarks. And then accountability and ethics. So the process incorporates ethics reviews, and that's one of the first things that we have applicants do is to sign an ethical agreement. Um, and we do have professional references, we get testimonials, we do background checks. So that helps to uphold the integrity of the application process. And then the final few points, the application review. Um, it evaluates formal education, as we've mentioned earlier, supervised experience, and then a code of ethics. And this helps us filter out unqualified applicants. Comprehensive exam. So it tests critical knowledge areas like prevention, assessment, treatment planning, co-occurring disorders, so on and so forth. And then continued professional development. And we mentioned this slightly earlier as well, but credentialing isn't a one-time hurdle. It's a part of a career-long commitment to learning and ethical excellence. And so it kind of challenges the professional a little bit to stay up to date and stay on top of their career field. And as careers develop, things change. Research continues to expand, so it helps to keep you up to date and um, grow yourself professionally to make sure that uh, with you're caught up to the current developments. And so that was the rationale to understand what the process is. And now I'll quickly go over what the process actually is. So I'll go over the building of a strong application. So what is a satisfactory application? How do we internally review your application? And some common mistakes that applicants encounter and how you can avoid them. So really quick, we have an overview of the credentialing process. So the first and foremost, one thing that we highly suggest is to join the ISUP Global Network. And that's easy as just going to their website and signing up as making an account and signing up as a member. And then the second step is to take courses and or meet eligibility criteria for the proposed credential. So for example, if you're taking the ICAP prevention, then you want to have some relevant prevention courses, whether that's the UTC, UPC, URC, or um, based on our determination, if you have other supplemental courses, then that might suffice towards your training hours as well. And then the third step is to document work experience for the proposed credential. So that entails narrative description. So what do you do on a daily basis in your role? And again, that there's the professional references that we are also looking for. And so you'll upload some documentation to support your application. Then the final step or the fourth step is to submit the application, and then it'll undergo a review process. If you do pass or you're approved for the exam, then you'll take it. If you've been rejected, fortunately, you'll have two additional chances to resubmit your application and be able to fix any errors that there might have been in the application. So if you've been rejected once, don't think that you can't take the exam ever again. We do give you some grace period. Then the final step, or the fifth step, is to take the exam. And again, as we mentioned earlier, there are two modalities. So there's an online remote proctored exam, and then there's an in-person exam. Um, the application process itself for both of those modalities is the same. It's just that when you take the exam, online remote proctor, you'll be taking it within the conveniences or the comfort of your home or at a computer lab. And then the in-person exam, you'll be taking it at an exam location um, where it's being hosted. And then finally, so if you do pass and you've been issued a credential, then you'll get placed onto a live register and you'll be able to, your credential will remain active for 3 years and you'll be able to renew um, for a period of every 3 years, every time you renew. If you don't pass, unfortunately, you won't get issued a credential and you'll go back to step two and restart the process um, at your earliest convenience. And so I've mentioned the live register. I want to quickly show um, the register itself. So let me kind of walk you through the process. Okay. So this is the live register is a new addition or feature for our team. And essentially what that helps to do is to allow employers to check if your credential is up to date or legitimate, and also for yourself to keep track of your expiration date, um, maybe your just to make sure that it's up to date. So this is our website, the ICUDDR website. And we have some tabs here. So education, research, system change, and credentialing and accreditation. That's where you want to go. These other tabs will have more information about our center and the process, things like that. But at the very last tab, there's the ICAP Live Register. So when you click on that, it'll take you to our CCA portal. And I want to clarify that the ICUDDR website and the portal is different. The portal is where all the applications reside, whereas the ICUDDR website is for our organization as a whole, and it has our history and just our teams and our membership, so on and so forth. But the portal is where you'll put the application and all the communication will happen through there. So going back to the live register, so we have some definitions and how it works. Credential type serial number. That's how you can look up um, your credential, or you can look up via your last name or your first name. So we'll use Dr. Clancy as an example. So as you just saw there, I typed in Clancy and I clicked enter and it searched up. And now we can see um, Dr. Carmel Clancy, her full name, the status of her credential, and she is currently credentialed, and then the location, so where she is currently practicing or residing is United Kingdom. Um, right now she is credentialed, which means it's active, but we have different statuses. So needs to renew means that your credential is set to expire in 6 months. Expired means that your credential has gone past its active date. And then we have deceased, suspended, or no recorded qualifications found. And so this helps the professional, you yourself, stay on top of your credential status. And it also helps employers be able to recognize your credential and know that you are who you say you are and you do have the qualifications that you say you have.
And sorry to interject, you want to view details, Sanju, just so people can
Yes.
see, because you can click on that and it gives you specific dates, guys, as you can see. So it also tells you what the credential is, which is important. So you can see
Right.
I'm ICAP treatment level 3. And I registered, I was awarded back in 2017, but I'm still active and up to 28. So you can actually have two or three different credentials, and mine only shows treatment, but the profile, if you were credentialed in prevention, you may also be credentialed in recovery and treatment, or you could then add your new credential if you're going for the RN. All of those would be just listed with their award date or expiry date and then the status. So people can see that you're not just carrying one credential, but your profile shows all of your credentials, which is really helpful as well. Thank you, Sanju. Sorry to interject.
Hmm. No worries. Okay. So going back to our slide, so that was the live register. And we'll have a QR code at the end where you can get to our website. But for now, we'll continue on with the webinar. So, elements of a satisfactory application. When you get into the CCA portal, when you create an account and you start an application for whichever credential that you want to pursue, there's a checklist of items that you'll either upload a document for or type in a description or provide training certificates. So those are things that we are looking for to satisfy the eligibility criteria. So first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, the assigned code of ethics. And then we want to have a certified calculation of contact hours of education and training. So again, that could be the UPC, URC, UTC, or the UNAC or other supplemental trainings. And then a detailed CV of the candidate highlighting highest education and dates. So this is your resume, your work history, um, your your educational experience, things like that. And then a letter of recommendation from a clinical supervisor. So where you're currently working, we want to have someone who is supervising you or knows you well to be able to verify that your work your work experience is what you've stated it is. If you are at the supervisor level or a managerial level, then we ask that you get this letter from someone who is um, either on par with what your title is or someone who is even higher than you are. And then a narrative description. So again, this is your daily work tasks, your responsibilities, what do you do on a regular basis. And then certified true copies of school and university certificates, so that's your diploma. And then a government issued photo ID. So that could be your driving license, it could be a passport, it could be um, a national ID. So now that we've gone over the satisfactory elements, these are some of the mistakes that we encounter as the CCA application reviewers and things that often catch many candidates uh, to have their application get rejected. So insufficient training hours. So excuse me. For example, an ICAP treatment one requires 120 hours, but the training that they submitted only accounts for 10 of those 120. That would not suffice. Or expired training hours is something that we see a lot. So in the application process, we ask for training completed within the last 5 years. So right now it's the beginning of 2026. So your training back until 2021 would work. But if you had a training that you've completed in 2018, that unfortunately would not suffice. So you either need to renew that training or retake the course or uh, sup- uh, provide a more updated training certificate. The resume and CV does not include enough details or relevant information. So something we see a lot is the CV will not include dates. So I've worked as a addiction counselor from 2018 to 2022. We need to have those dates to be able to calculate how much working experience that you have and if you're eligible for the exam. Letter of recommendation does not feature verified years of experience, an official organization letterhead, or a signature from the direct supervisor, clinical supervisor. So these are things that we've also recognized a lot as well. Verified years of experience, we need an explicit statement from the author of the letter stating so and so professional has worked under my direct supervision for the past 2 years. We need a statement saying that, and then official organization letterhead that includes a stamp or logo, and then signature. That's something that's often missing a lot as well. And we've created templates to help facilitate this process, and so it'll walk you through now everything that you need to check off. But even still, we sometimes see some shortcomings. So we want to emphasize this particular section. Narrative description needs more detail. So, for example, sometimes we've seen narrative descriptions as maybe just one sentence and it says, I work in substance use counseling. We need more detail. We need more information about what you do. You can say, I see X amount of patients per day, and I'm supervised by my supervisor, and I go over um, the patient reports and things like that. We need more detail about what you do in your work. Submitting academic transcripts instead of official diplomas or certificates. So that's something that we see a lot as well. So as I mentioned earlier, it could be a high school diploma, bachelor degree, master's, so on and so forth. But we need to see the diploma where it's signed by your educational institution or stamped. Um, Unfortunately, academic transcripts, even if you've completed the full term of your degree, will not suffice. And then the last thing is no photo ID is attached. So the reason why we need a photo ID is for example, for an in-person exam, when you're checking in, we want to make sure that the person who applied for the application is the same person who's sitting for the exam. So that helps us identify the candidate and the applicant and make sure that we uphold integrity. So laying the groundwork. So now we're going to go over the actual preparation, the actual study tools, and time management aspect of the application or of the exam. So how do you prepare for the ICAP exam? So first and foremost, we want some good planning. So that's to start early and strategically. So you want to complete your training, assess your knowledge, and follow a structured timeline. Make sure you review your study material. And then we want good science. So you want to use smart study tools. So you can use official guides or proven strategies for exam taking, such as recall, repetition, and teaching others. And then we want to combine those two together. So good science and good planning to master time management. So that's you want to apply the study habits and in-exam strategies to stay on track and reduce stress. Um, we do give ample time for the exam, but oftentimes, based on your own pace, some candidates will take the full time or feel that they are in pressured for time. So you want to make sure that you're pacing yourself well. So inside the exam, again, we want to go over the format and the domains and some sample questions. So what can you expect from our exam? Um, you want to the focus, you want to assess core knowledge and applied skills for addiction professionals. The format is primarily multiple choice with real world scenario questions. So it'll be A, B, C, D answer choices, and you'll have a bubble sheet. So based on the answer, let's say it's answer A, then you want to fill out A on the bubble sheet. So that's kind of an example. It's primarily based on Colombo Plan core training curricula. So as I mentioned earlier, the UTC, the URC, the UPC, and now the UNAC as well. Um, and so these courses are available online for free on the Health E-Knowledge website. You can also get to it through the ISEP website as well, which is why we encourage joining that network. But again, we are also open based on our determination to other trainings. Um, let's say you have an ethics training from your workplace, your organization that checks off all the other boxes, or there's a lot of overlap with the training we're looking for, that may suffice as well. So when you're going through the application process, any training that you have, just please include it, and the review team will make a determination whether that suffices or not. So flexibility, other quality resources are allowed, as I mentioned, if aligned with the core competencies. And then recognition, aligned with the international standards and recognized across regions. So inside the exam, so formats. So as you can see here, the ICAP 1, 2, 3, 4 are all in reference to the ICAP treatment, since this is the only credential that we have multiple levels for at the moment. So as you can see, it ranges from 125 questions to 150 questions. Everyone gets 3 hours for the exam, as I mentioned. Passing score varies, but I want to touch upon the domains on the left side of the screen. So the first domain is orientation to the treatment process. The second one is assessment. The third one is ongoing treatment planning and implementation. The fourth one is addiction counseling practices and skills. And the fifth one is professional practices. So I want to emphasize those to help give you a better idea of what the exam questions will cater towards and how to best prepare when you're going over study material. The ICAP prevention and the ICAP recovery support are slightly different as they have different domains and different number of questions. So both of them have 100 questions, which is a few less from the ICAP treatment. You'll still have 3 hours. As you can see here, the passing scores differ as well, so 70% and 74%. Excuse me. And so for the ICAP prevention, the domains are community problem identification, community needs assessment, evidence-based prevention strategies and programs, and implementation, cycle planning, monitoring, and evaluation. For the ICAP recovery support, the domains are roles of recovery support professionals, basic concepts of recovery practice, pharmacology, and professional issues. So I mentioned earlier the exam is formatted as a multiple choice. So how do you analyze these questions? So again, there are only four possible answers. You want to look for keywords such as first, best, most appropriate, kind of those highlighting key identifying keywords. Then you want to use the process of elimination. So if you know that there's a blatantly wrong answer, then that'll help narrow down your choices. And even when you're unsure, logical reasoning can often lead to the right answer. And then you want to leave yourself time. As I mentioned earlier, some candidates take the full time and then they forget that they need to review their answers or they need to fill out their bubble sheet. So you want to pace yourself well as you're going through the exam to be able to review questions that you're unsure about or questions that you skipped. And if you skip a question, unfortunately, that negatively impacts your score. So you want to make sure that everything is filled out. And then practicing sample questions is crucial. So not just to memorize them, but to understand the reasoning and the rationale and the concepts behind them. And so, as we've mentioned, the sample questions, we're actually going to go over some ourselves. Um, Due to time, we'll go over this slightly quickly. But for example, we have an ICAP prevention sample question. So the first one is which of the following is the most strongly associated with increased risk for substance use during adolescence? Um, just quickly go over those answers. So as you can see, A, B, C, D. And as you can see here, the correct answer was B. And then, for example, the treatment questions, which of the following refers to coordination of services and resources to meet a client's overall health and social needs during recovery? Answer is B, case management. So these questions aren't taken from the exam itself. These are reworded and kind of reconceptualized, but they're still based on the foundation of the criteria of each exam. So as you can see how the questions are worded, it'll give you a better idea of what the actual exam will look like and then the answer choices as well. So here's ICAP treatment 2 and 3 sample questions, and there are the answers. And then moving forward, ICAP 4 and ICAP recovery support, and there are the answers as well. Unfortunately, we don't have any ICAP RN questions at the moment, since that is still in development. But as soon as we do, we'll add this to our webinar. So we have a little bit of time now to go over some questions, comments, or concerns. I think I saw a few questions in the chat as well, but feel free to unmute if you would like to ask a question, and or if you have any questions regarding the Uganda exam or even the conference that's happening after the exam. So this is time now for the questions. I'll leave up this QR code if you need to leave, or people are going in and out. The one on the left is the ICUDDR website that you just saw. And the one on the right is our CCA page. So yeah, now is the time for the questions.
Right. This is really helpful. Thank you, Sunju. The
Hmm.
first one is from Sarah
Yes.
about really about the status of your cumulative hours with your supervisor, because one of the templates you have to complete is the supervisor sort of acknowledging that you have done the requisite number of hours. If you've changed workplace recently, it's a great question actually, because one would assume that as part of the transfer to the new workplace, they will have done some due diligence on your background in terms of your previous workplace and would have had a recommendation from your previous workplace, etc. So I think we don't want to make life too difficult. So I would suggest that your current supervisor can validate that you have come to them already sort of recommended because they've done due diligence as they processed you, so to speak, to come into their workplace. So they could confirm that the history and that your prior experience knowledge is validated by them as you came in. And then they can talk about you and in your current role and your status that you're working with them. So hopefully that addresses that question for you, Sarah. Anybody want to open a mic or put in another question if you feel that there's something specific for your from your lens, please feel free. If you're shy to open the mic, that's fine. We understand. Then just type in a question and we'll take it. Um, or as we say, turn on the camera and or open the mic. We've got a few minutes. But we really hope that this has been helpful while people are contemplating opening the mic or putting in a question. Statement we've seen often is, yes, thank you, Sunju. I have directly supervised this professional for 2 years and they have worked in the field for 6 years. Really helpful, Sunju. Thank you. Hopefully that clarifies a little bit further for Sarah as well. Thank you, Sarah. That's lovely. And for those of you who, as we say, are going to be potentially interested in taking the ICAP RN, what you've heard actually is very, very similar in the sense that all of what Sunju is taking you through and all of the sort of the pitfalls that can happen are all going to be, I would have thought, similar and applied to you also. So do please. The only thing is that you can't get into our portal. We're just waiting for our tech support to assist us with getting the portal specific portal link for accounts for those who are coming forward for the ICAP RN. That's the only reason that we haven't been able to put that link in. So what Sunju has just done, for those of you interested in the ICAP RN specifically, what we'd invite you to do is to reach out to us at the address cca_info at ICUDDR.org and let us know that you're interested in applying for the forthcoming ICAP RN, which is going to be running out of Uganda. If you are interested in the ICAP RN but can't make it to Uganda, then probably don't fret, because by the time an exam is scheduled, we will have the portal active and running so that you can do a direct entry into that. But in the meantime, if you are thinking about Uganda, then we ask you to reach out to us directly for any information that we can do to support that application. That's wonderful. Well, we're just top of the hour. So send the ICAP RN exam link, please. So what we're saying, Rose, is that the email that Sunju has put in, which is also in the chat, which is the CCA_info at ICUDDR.org. If you can send a specific email to that, just saying, I am interested in taking the ICAP RN at the forthcoming Uganda conference. Doesn't mean that you have to be registered for the conference, by the way. You can actually just attend to take the exam. You don't actually have to sign up to come to the conference, although we would highly recommend it, of course, while you're there. But if you don't want to attend the conference but just wish to take the exam, then you can do that by just sending us an email to say, I intend to be in Uganda during the 15th of April, and I would like to take the ICAP RN exam specifically. And we will then reach out and take you through that application process and the criteria. Well, thank you, everybody. Really great. Thank you for your attendance. This has been recorded. It will be made available for everybody who registered. But if you have a colleague who was unable to join but was also interested in hearing more about the ICAP credentialing process, then please, by all means, share the link with them. It's an open access, so you don't need to register or put in any passwords to access the details. And you can reach out. As you can see, Sunju has very kindly given you his email. So if there's any other follow-ups that you have or any specific questions that you would like to take offline and discuss with us, please also feel free to do that. We're here to support you as you progress your career and your credentialing. So thank you so much. Sunju?
Yeah, thank you all for joining. And again, I've put my email in the chat, so if you have any questions regarding this specific webinar or any of the material that we covered or any other extraneous questions, please reach out to me directly.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Thank you all
everybody.
for
Have a
coming.
lovely day wherever you
Bye-bye.
are, or evening or morning, given that this is a global event. So take care, and thank you so much for your attention and for your participation today. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.